The fall semester of my junior year of college was spent studying abroad with my best friend Florence. Before we knew it, 4 months had just flown by, and we were on our way to the airport. The night before, there was a huge snowstorm, something that's really rare for Italy. The city was covered in white as we drove through, and I remember feeling incredibly bummed to be going home. The airport was complete chaos, and upon entering, we discovered that our flight had been canceled. We spent nearly 13 hours in line trying to get another flight. Finally, we were given tickets to a new flight, but that flight was leaving from Rome in 3 days. Since we already had handed our keys to our apartment, we were completely stranded. My friend was a complete wreck at this point, terrified at the idea that we might not make it back for Christmas. So I decided the best course of action would be to hop on a train to Rome and spend the next couple of nights in an airport. After 7 exhausting hours on the train, we finally made it into Rome's airport and tried to find a corner to sleep. We found a small area between a handicap ramp and a wall. Exhausted, we pushed our luggage into the back of the nook and laid our backs against them. After making sure my friend was okay, I covered myself with my jacket and fell asleep. I awoke to the feeling of a tug on my foot, and thinking that someone had accidentally kicked my shoe while passing by, I shrugged it off. Not 3 seconds later, I hear a man whisper, "American? American?" I felt the tug on my foot again. I jumped up to my feet to see my best friend with her jacket on and her luggage by her side, standing next to a very handsome Italian man. He had salt and pepper hair and was wearing a dark suit with a champagne-colored tie. I looked at my friend quizzically, trying to figure out what was going on and why she was standing with him. His behavior immediately set off alarms in my head, and I grabbed my friend's arm to pull her back away from him. He grabbed her other arm and started talking very fast, saying that he worked for the airport and the flights out of Rome were all going to be canceled shortly. He said he had a car and could drive us to Naples and we can get a flight from there. He said that my American friend had agreed to come with him and that I should too.
"American, it is safe with me."
I glared at my friend and told him in Italian that we were not interested and that we'd rather wait for the flight. With my hand still firmly gripping my friend's arm, I grabbed my stuff and tried to walk away from this creep. He immediately moved into my way, blocking us into the nook. His eyes, with no semblance of humanity, fixed onto mine as he said,
"American, you are coming with me."
My reaction was immediate and it felt raw, almost animalistic. Full of rage, I lunged at this man, shoving both of my fists into his stomach. It definitely surprised him and definitely knocked the wind out of him because his knees buckled and he toppled to the floor, bringing my friend down with him. As soon as they hit the ground, my friend began screaming and the man scrambled to get up away from us, but not before the security guard by the door got to him. I began repeating that he was trying to take us, as the security guard knelt on the guy's back, keeping him there until other guards could assist. When the man was secured, they lifted him off the ground to bring him to what I assumed was a detainment room. As they lifted him, he looked directly at me with his empty eyes and whispered,
"See you soon, American."
I was so exhausted and terrified, and incredibly angry at the fact that my friend had agreed to go with this man, that she had thought it was a good plan to get into a car with this person that she'd never met, and that she had put us in an extremely dangerous situation. When I confronted her about it, her only excuse was that she wanted to make it home in time for Christmas. If she had gone with him, I don't think she'd ever make it to another Christmas ever again. This story took place about 10 years ago. It was around Christmas time, and my mom and her best friends went out for a girls' night at the bar. Upon their return, I got to see my mom in a very rare state, drunk. My mom and her friends were like 2 drunken little schoolgirls. They had also decided to bring home a male friend. We'll call him Charlie. They had met Charlie while at the bar, and I assumed that my mom and him had taken an interest in each other. About an hour into their return, I was on my way to take out the trash. As I closed the gate to the backyard, Suddenly, Charlie randomly appears out of nowhere. I wasn't even aware anyone saw me take the trash out, much less this guy who's never been to my house before. I was thrown off, but politely said hey. He asked what I was doing. After telling him, I took out the trash, and he continued to try to make small talk with me. This went on for about 20 minutes, and I was already creeped out by him. The longer he kept forcing conversation, the more I was creeped out. I was too young, naive, and polite to just walk back inside and get myself out of this mess. Luckily, my mom came wandering into the backyard, and she saw Charlie talking to me. She came up and asked what was going on, in a tone that only I noticed that was slightly alerted compared to her conversational tone. I explained to her I was just taking out the trash, and she told me to go to my room. Within 5 minutes, Charlie had left, and all the drunken merriment of the night was gone. I just somehow knew that something was wrong. I saw all the dots just connect in my head, and Mom had realized it. While at the bar, Charlie asked if my mom had any children. When she had mentioned that she had a 13-year-old daughter, he had become more interested. The reason why this sick bastard came out was to see me. While nothing ever became of it, I'm glad that my mom came in time, because who knows what he was going to do to me. It was Christmas Eve, and I was a freshman in high school. My family had been split up for some time, so normally we trade off on Christmas Day. When I was dropped off, my cousins offered to stay with me for a few hours, but I declined. I thought I could watch some of my new DVDs and get some alone time in the house. I had noticed an unfamiliar car parked on the street, but didn't think anything of it considering it was Christmas Eve. Probably a neighbor's relative or something. After I got inside, I locked the door, grabbed snacks, and started to settle down. I hadn't been there for more than 15 minutes when there was a knock at the door. I unlocked the door and opened it only a crack to see a man standing there. Dark hair, glasses, slightly overweight, and dressed casually. He didn't look like much of a threat, but my stomach dropped. He said,
I was wondering about the car outside. Is it for sale?
I told him I didn't think so.
Is there someone here I can talk to about it?
I said, no, you can come back another time, and turned the lock as fast as I possibly could. He reached for the handle immediately and started pounding on the door. I heard a string of profanities and the pounding stopped. Terrified, I crawled on the floor to the phone, hoping that he wouldn't see me through the windows. Then I heard the noises. Our house had an open garage door, and it led through the laundry room, where the door lock was broken and no one had bothered to fix it. Just then, I heard a man yell, and I saw the man through the window run to his car and drive off. My uncle had gotten him just in time and scared the man off. Who knows what would have happened if he had made it home in time. Sadly, we didn't get the plate number, and nothing ever came of it. But I'll never be home alone on a holiday again. This happened almost 3 years ago on Christmas Eve. At the time, I was working a retail job at the mall. I live in a reasonably sized city, and we have a great transit system. I had tried to get out of working the holidays, but of course, that didn't happen. My parents were out of state visiting the rest of my family, and I had planned to take the Amtrak out there to visit them early the next morning. I got off work around 9 p.m. and caught my first bus at the transit station below the mall. I had my headphones on and was minding my own business when a group of 3 guys in their mid-20s got on the bus and sat behind me. I had my music playing pretty quietly, and I heard them start talking about me. So I tried to play it off and tell myself I was just being paranoid, but I knew better. My first transfer was coming up, and I waited until the very last second to request my stop. The bus started slowing down, and as I stood up, I heard the 3 of them do the same thing. At this point, I was getting a little nervous. It was nearly 10 p.m., and although there were plenty of businesses in the area, no one was around, seeing as it was Christmas Eve and all of them were closed. I had to walk from the bus stop all the way down the street to catch a bus that would take me to my apartment. There was a shortcut I'd never seen anyone take before, so I just got off the bus and started heading that way. Then the guys started following me. I had mace in my pocket, and I took it out as I reached the next bus stop. I sat down and pretended I didn't notice that I wasn't alone. One of the guys enters the shelter and starts talking to me.
Hey baby, how you doing? Why are you all by yourself at night?
I simply ignored him, stood up, and walked about 20 feet away from the bus stop. This is where shit got weird. One of the other guys started walking towards me. I moved close to the street to let him pass me. He kept walking for maybe another 10 feet, then stopped and turned around. The other two were still standing next to the shelter. As I'm looking at them, they start walking toward me real fast. I turned around and the third guy who had passed me was doing the same. I panicked and ran across the street as fast as I could. I saw that there was a fast food restaurant still open. I looked behind me and saw that these guys were chasing me. I booked it as fast as possible to the fast food joint and ran inside. I told the guy at the counter what had just happened. He was a terrifying looking guy, maybe 6'4", in his early 30s, all muscle bound. The guys had waited outside for a moment, but I'm pretty sure they bolted when they saw me talking to him. The employee took off out the back door to try to search for them, but he couldn't find them. I waited there for almost an hour to make sure they wouldn't come back. I was too afraid to go wait for the next bus, so I ended up spending my train money the next morning on a cab to get home and spent the Christmas in bed watching TV. While my Christmas was ruined, I'm grateful that I'm still alive. Once again, thank you for listening. Sorry that I wasn't able to post this for Christmas, but I've been sick the last couple of days, so just getting over a virus. Anyways, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. And if you've been a bad person this year, you better watch out, or else you'll be dead by midnight.